Started. So thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Erin Daly, and on behalf of Everbridge, I'm excited to present this Expert Insights webinar, Managing Staffing for Critical Events, How AlliedBarton Keeps Clients Safe. In this webinar, our presenters will review the AlliedBarton story and their strategy for critical event staffing. We'll also discuss communication challenges and how those are solved through smart delivery and assured response. After the session, we will have a 15-minute Q&A session with our speakers. As a reminder, you can submit your questions at any time during the webinar. You may send your questions by typing in the open text field in the questions panel and sending your question to all panelists. If time runs out before your question is asked, we will try to follow up with you after the webinar has ended. Links to the recording of the webinar and slides from today's presentation will be available on our blog within a few days of today's session. You can also look for a link to the recording for all of our webinars on everbridge.com under our resources section. If you're on Twitter, we encourage you to take a moment to follow us at @Everbridge and use the webinar hashtag #Everbridge to share snippets of insight throughout our program with your followers. We'll even retweet some of your comments. And now I'd like to introduce you to our speakers. Daniel Sundberg is the Director of AlliedBarton's National Accounts Program Development. Daniel has been with AlliedBarton Security Services for 16 years, beginning as an EMT dispatcher for the company in 1996. He has worked with company leaders to identify strategic solutions that meet the needs of some of AlliedBarton's largest and most visible clients. In his current role, Daniel helps manage the development, implementation, and maintenance of security programs for AlliedBarton's national accounts. After Daniel's presentation, we'll be hearing from Claudia Dent, Vice President of Product Management at Everbridge. Claudia brings many years of experience in the technology industry, including executive positions in product management, marketing, business development, and general management in companies ranging from startup to large global enterprises. We're excited and honored to have both of our speakers with us today. So now I'd like to turn it over to our presenter, Daniel Sundberg. Mr. Sundberg, you may be.
Thanks, Erin. I'm very happy to be able to have the opportunity to tell our story today. Again, my name is Daniel Sundberg. I'm the Director of Program Development for National Accounts at AlliedBarton Security Services. In my role, I'm responsible for leading a talented team of project managers who are responsible for developing and implementing processes and programs which support our client accounts. Our projects cover a wide range of disciplines, including performance measurements, contract compliance, technology, communication, new business onboarding, and disaster response. Our group has the unique opportunity to work with very large corporations and understand their needs and wants and develop or tailor solutions to meet their expectations. This morning I'll spend just a couple of minutes giving an overview of AlliedBarton Security Services, 60 to 120 seconds or so, just so that you have some background on our company, and then also just an overview of our National Accounts Division. I will then review our communications goals and needs, go over why we chose Everbridge, cite some examples as to how we use Everbridge and why we find it important, and then talk a little bit about our initiatives moving forward surrounding Everbridge. So a bit about AlliedBarton. AlliedBarton Security Services is the largest American-owned security officer services company. We are a trusted leader with proven expertise in a number of markets, including chemical and petrochemical, colleges and universities, commercial real estate, defense and aerospace, financial institutions, shopping centers, manufacturing and industrial, just to name a few. We employ approximately 58,000 and have 120 regional and district offices located across the United States. Some of our customers are very large enterprises. We serve approximately 200 Fortune 500 companies. Others are smaller organizations. And through our local response national support approach, each customer receives the same level of dedication and excellent service. A bit about our national accounts division within the company. Some of our largest clients with geographically dispersed portfolios seek a consistent program across all locations. We're able to deliver responsive and reliable security services to these clients through our national accounts program. AlliedBarton National Accounts customers can expect a customized national strategy executed on a local level, a national, local, and corporate transition and implementation team, meaningful local and national performance metrics and customized reporting, focused national leadership with local relationships, the assurance of a program that is consistent through the use of quarterly business reviews, contract compliance, auditing, performance measurement scorecards, best practice sharing across industries, and online communication tools. And they can expect a crisis management program in the case of an emergency. So that's a little bit about our company and our clients. I want to talk a little bit about our communication goals and needs and why we started looking for a product like Everbridge. In our industry today, the quality and swiftness of communication is paramount to protecting our employees and our clients. We know that. We knew that we needed to get information in the hands of employees during emergency events in order to ensure that our client sites are properly staffed to mitigate the risk of security breach or safety hazard. From a non-emergency perspective, we knew that we needed the ability to instruct field personnel to check their post orders for updates or to review a specific training class before a pending deadline. From a corporate perspective, notifying employees of office or network outages was important. We knew from experience that our clients' communication needs revolved around being able to quickly and effectively escalate incident details to appropriate security or facilities leadership. So how do you communicate to thousands of employees across the country? Prior to Everbridge, we relied heavily on phone and email, as most companies do. Everbridge leverages these same communications channels, but adds other channels and automates the process. Shared messages are consistent, and the system identifies open channels automatically. This saves significant manual effort and increases response time exponentially. In organizational communications in general, top-down messages are typically passed through management structure, through the relevant ranks that need to receive the message. Part of Everbridge's benefit is that all or part of the population can be contacted at once, and they can proactively inquire about the messaging in question. So why did we choose Everbridge? Our primary goal was to enable ourselves to disseminate critical information as quickly and effectively as possible. A mass notification system enables us to keep our security personnel informed in real time of events and circumstances that may impact operations. We found through evaluation that Everbridge was among the most functional technical solutions available, and we liked the quality of infrastructure used by the system. But among the more important factors is also the willingness of Everbridge to support its clients operationally through things like live operator services and sharing of information and best practices through various media like we're doing now. We found that Everbridge had a proven implementation process to get the system in use by our targeted timelines. And it's an intuitive system, and their flexible training options made it easy for us to get up to speed without interrupting our normal duties. The targeting the user, not the device strategy allows us to quickly reach employees. Their ongoing support provides confidence when dealing with critical security requirements, unplanned events, and disasters. Some of the other features that we find valuable are being able to record voice messages without hassle through the phone so that our volunteers hear a familiar voice from one message to the next. I'm going to speak briefly on the next slide about our National Account Situational Response Program, and our volunteers hear the same voice from one message to the next, and we find that that's very important. The customizable caller ID and email ID that's available to increase the likelihood recipients will pick up the call or read an email, and the ability to receive confirmations that messages were received by intended recipients. So now I'm going to discuss specifically our story and one of the ways that we use Everbridge through what we call our situational response program. When our clients have a short-term staffing need due to an unforeseen, natural, or man-made event, we rely on our local offices, those 120 offices, to support these requests with personnel from the area. That makes the most sense. When resources do not appear to be or are not available, staffing resources, we turn to our situational response program to support these events. The main component of this program requires recruiting employee volunteers who are willing to travel across the country to work assignments at client locations affected by an event. Remember, this is something large enough to where the staffing resources in the affected area are not available, so this situational response program requires us to send employee volunteers from one region to the next to be able to support an event that occurs. Aside from the complex task of providing lodging and transportation and equipment, cell phones, telephones to these volunteers with little notice, providing to hundreds of volunteers consistently, providing information to hundreds of volunteers consistently and expeditiously presents its own issues, of course. An example of how we effectively communicate to these volunteers using Everbridge is what we call a deployment standby notice. When an event is declared by a client or when we know that there's a potential natural disaster approaching like a hurricane, potential volunteers are determined by filtering users by attribute. We use several attributes in Everbridge, including things like locations, office locations, those 120 I mentioned, company regions. We use qualifications or certifications that a volunteer may possess, such as a CPR First Aid AED certification or a government clearance or a TWIC card for port facilities. These are all things that could be required by a client when they're requesting staffing support. An emergency message is voice recorded notifying these volunteers that an event has been declared and that deployment may occur. This is a very important step in our situational response program. Some details are provided in this message, such as location and expected deployment windows, event description, but generally our message is brief. We want to get them the information that that something is going to occur and that they may be called to duty. So within minutes, using Everbridge, we've effectively placed volunteers on standby for this deployment. It signals our volunteers to notify their manager or their family members that they may be traveling to support an event, but it also allows them to begin preparing things like uniforms and personal items for travel. A second example of how we use Everbridge to communicate with our volunteers is called a deployment notice. So step 1, deployment standby. Step 2, deployment notice. Once volunteers have been placed on standby, if deployment becomes necessary, the next message they receive will notify them that we are looking for volunteers to travel, and this message will contain details on who to contact to receive deployment instructions. We use the emergency quota message feature in Everbridge to send this message. This feature allows us to stop sending notifications once the desired amount of volunteers have confirmed that they can deploy. So we've got a client who is in need of 10 security officers to work their facilities due to an event. We can send out a message to 50 of them, but once we receive confirmation from the first 10 saying that they can deploy, the system will stop sending that message so that we don't get more volunteers than we need. A little bit about our process. We have one person in our group with the national accounts who manages the database for new volunteers, contact information, turnover, things like that. It doesn't require a full-time person. It's only part of their duties. This person ensures that contact information is up to date and that qualifications and certifications are collected and entered for each volunteer. And they're also responsible for sending messages when we do have an event that's about to occur or that has occurred. So currently we have about 200 volunteers around the country, and we work weekly to recruit, to constantly be recruiting new volunteers and members. Our goal is to be around 500. So that's a little bit about how we use Everbridge in our own internal process. So specifically, some examples, in 2012, there were 5 events that required some level of response from our situational response program. And I've used the term situational, and we decided to use the term situation because we didn't want to say disaster or emergency when it could be the event could be man-made or it could be some large event like the Democratic National Convention. So we went with a more general term like situational. But I'm just going to go over quickly four events that occurred in 2012, and then get in a little more depth into our response to Hurricane Sandy. So one example was a client internal investigation. We had a large client who wished to conduct surveillance at their facilities, which weren't normally protected by our security staff. We knew immediately that our normal offices would not be able to support this event due to the remoteness of their locations. Our response for this client was to create post orders for security officers to follow when they arrive, secure lodging and communications equipment in advance of deployment, and we placed approximately 500 volunteers on standby using Everbridge. Ultimately, the request for staffing was canceled, but we were prepared for immediate deployment. A second example, and similar to the previous example, a large client was facing a potential workforce strike. Preparations were similar, such as creating post orders, securing lodging and equipment, and placing volunteers on standby using Everbridge. But again, the request was canceled prior to deployment, and we demonstrated to our client that we were prepared to fulfill this short-term staffing request. A third example involved the Democratic National Convention. In this example, instead of supporting a single request by one client, we were tasked with supporting the staffing needs of our local office in Charlotte. Many of our clients in the area were seeking additional protection for their facilities due to the influx of people. Also, we were contracted to provide support in the surrounding area. And although we placed 130 volunteers on standby and we're preparing to deploy, the region was able to support the staffing requests without the need of the situational response program. So we used Everbridge to cancel that standby notice, and by this time we were getting a lot of practice with sending messages and whatnot. And around the same time that we were preparing to support the DNC, Hurricane Isaac was approaching the Gulf Coast. And in this instance, again, we used Everbridge to notify 100 volunteers in surrounding regions of the approaching storm. We didn't include anybody in the region because we knew that resources would be limited. So we notified 100 volunteers in areas where we knew wouldn't be affected by the storm. We indicated to them that there was a potential for assistance, and we placed them on standby. And ultimately, one large client would use the service of these volunteers, and we deployed 10 volunteers, some of up to 8 weeks. So that was the first time that we were able to use Everbridge to deploy our employees. In a more specific example, I want to talk about Hurricane Sandy. The landfall of Superstorm Sandy on the New York and New Jersey area meant that we had to use Everbridge more than we ever had. In addition to communicating to our volunteers to notify them that we were following the details of the storm, not knowing whether we were going to need their support or not, depending on damage, we were expecting staffing requests as a result of the storm damage. But our corporate office began using Everbridge to send messages regarding the impact of the storm on our own offices. Leading up to and during the event, our corporate office had sent 5 messages to our employees in the area notifying them of office closures, road and bridge closures, and storm progress. Some up to 250 employees at a time. Additionally, volunteers of the Situational Response Program received 7 messages prior to and during the storm indicating the storm's progress. We placed them on standby, and we ultimately deployed volunteers to support the event. In this case, we ended up having about 6 employees deploy from Pennsylvania to New Jersey. I know it's not a large distance to cover, but the 6 were definitely very helpful. And I did some math on how many messages we sent out between the Situational Response Program and the corporate office, and ultimately it was 1,900 messages that we sent during the storm using Everbridge, and just something that couldn't have been done otherwise. So hopefully that was helpful to you. In summary, I just want to add that Everbridge allows for more efficient operations through automation and consistency of messaging. This minimizes any misunderstandings or inaccuracies in communication, and it helps us mobilize and prepare before events escalate. And I think that's out of those 3 events that I described where we put employees on standby and then canceled them and ultimately never responded, our clients were appreciative of our ability to mobilize and prepare before an event escalated. And all in all, it helps us to meet our clients' needs, giving them peace of mind. And that's ultimately our goal, is to put programs and processes in place which give our clients peace of mind. So just a couple of other items before I wrap up. Thank you everybody for taking the time this morning to jump on the call and hear our story. But just a couple of things and initiatives that we have moving forward. We're planning to train our Service Assurance Center personnel. We have 2 24/7 Service Assurance Centers, redundant centers. We plan on training our Service Assurance personnel to administer and facilitate notifications from requests from groups like ours, the Situational Response Program, or from our corporate IT departments, or from any regional groups within our company that implements Everbridge. This would allow for centralization of the notification process from all groups within the company, so we believe that will be helpful. We're looking to deploy to regional groups across the country as needed. This could be a local office that puts their employees on Everbridge to notify them about post-order updates or training requirements that need to be met. We're going to identify current processes that could benefit from automated notification which might increase their operational effectiveness by adding them to our Everbridge system. And then the last thing before I close is that we're looking to integrate data from our own payroll and human resources software with the Everbridge database, and we believe this will reduce administration related to tracking contact numbers and managing employee turnover from an administrative perspective. So that was my piece, and thank you everybody for taking the time to listen, and I'll turn it back over to you, Aaron. Thank you.
So hello everyone, my name is Claudia Dent, and I'm going to just finish off today's webinar with a brief overview of Everbridge so you get a feel for the technology that really provides all the services that Daniel was talking about. And I also want to take the time to thank Daniel for his presentation. It's really helpful to get an understanding of how AlliedBarton actually leverages Everbridge and really provides that peace of mind throughout many different kinds of situations that may arise. And like Daniel said, these situations, they may be emergencies, whether they're man-made or natural disasters, etc. But throughout many kinds of instances, there is a real need to have effective communications that are very clear and concise and fast so that people understand what's happening, what actions they should take. And this is really a matter of employee protection from a life-saving perspective, being able to communicate with a mobile team as we move more into the mobile world, continuing our operations for your particular organization, and any kind of incident response and management. These are the kinds of things that our customers leverage Everbridge for. So let's take a step back and talk about, as you prepare to provide, any kind of communication for any situational event that arises, there can be lots of challenges around how you're going to actually deliver the right message to the right individual. First of all, in an emergency situation like Hurricane Sandy is a great example, or something that you don't anticipate, there can be a lot of errors when you're under duress. So you have to be really careful of that. Daniel mentioned the whole notion of trying to manage your contact list. Lots of people, sometimes don't prepare ahead of time and understand who they need to communicate with, what's the best method to communicate with them, etc. Not having consistent processes for communications during emergency purposes. And then also, sometimes, you're trying to communicate with your constituents, but you don't always have the right access to frontline intelligence. You're not there at the fire or, at the scene of the problem. So, how do you ensure that you really understand and have the best situational intelligence? So those are some of the challenges our customers face. Likewise, you can have the smartest, fastest message on the face of the planet, but if you can't reach your constituents and you really have no way to confirm whether your message has been received, whether the right people have been notified, it doesn't really matter, right? So really making sure that responders receive the message, take the right actions, and that you can actually prove that in the long run, that you can prove that the people that needed to be notified were notified is critical. So we at Everbridge really focus on solving and meeting those challenges. And there are two pieces to that. The first piece is being able to deliver a smart message, right? Smart, intelligent messages in the fastest and most expedient way possible. And we do that through a series of automations and intelligence that gives you the maximum situational awareness. And we're going to talk a little bit about these things. Likewise, the second half of this puzzle is being able to know and be assured that your constituents are responding, that you've connected with them, and that you actually get a confirmation back. And not only just in regards to, yes, I received your message, but really establishing with your constituents a two-way, communication path so that you can get pictures from the front line.
what's happening during Hurricane Sandy? What's happening at the scene of a fire or at the scene of any other kind of problem? So being able to have two-way communications is also important in this connecting and confirming. So let's talk about some of the details of the solution here. The first is around providing automation and speed, in the event of a situation. As always, it's really important, and Daniel mentioned this, to do some planning ahead of time. And Everbridge enables you to build a set of templates so that in the event of the emergency that arises, you don't have to do a lot of thinking. You can respond really quickly with predetermined message templates and contact lists already ready to go to make sure that there are no errors. Now, oftentimes there are situations that arise that are unimaginable and you may not have a template for. Well, in that case, you can still easily create a message on the fly and with a one page, get out that message to the constituents that need to know, and with one click of a button, get that broadcast moving. So really, one aspect of delivery is all about automation and speed. Likewise, having some visual intelligence is also really important. So one of the elements of the Everbridge platform is something that we call interactive visibility. So this enables you to actually understand where all your contacts are in a very interactive, map-based environment. So, being able to understand, where people are and being able to target your contacts via a map using, a polygon or a specific address or a circle or a radius from a point makes it easier for you to get at the right people really quickly. In addition to providing this kind of contact targeting, we also enable you to leverage weather and map-based polygons for any kind of severe weather events. That includes things like blizzards, which we experienced recently with Nemo, hurricanes like Sandy, thunderstorms, tornadoes, etc. All of those, it's very important to understand who's going to be impacted. And when you look at something like a tornado, the area of impact must be very, very specific. And we leverage intelligent polygons that are drawn very specifically by weather experts to ensure that you can contact people in the event of these kinds of weather emergencies. So that's our visual intelligence. In addition to providing that visual intelligence with things like weather and the maps, etc., we also complement that with social intelligence. And there are two key aspects of our social intelligence which enable you to really maximize your situational awareness. The first is being able to leverage social media like Twitter, so you can actually filter out important tweets that may have information on a specific situation that you're interested in. So you can actually build filters ahead of time for events that you may know are happening, like Hurricane Sandy, for your area, and you can bound those by geography. So give me all of the all the tweets that are happening within a certain geography that pertain to Hurricane Sandy. Or you can do it on the fly. So if you know of a particular emergency, you can actually filter for that, again, bounded by a geography, keyword. It's very flexible. That way you see only the Twitter traffic that is most important to you and maximizes your situational intelligence. And I think there's a couple elements of the social media situational intelligence that are really, really important. The first is getting information that you may or may not have, understanding what's happening on the ground. The second is also understanding when there may be some kind of rumor out there that is not true. so that you can do some rumor, damage control. We've seen that in a number of situations with our customers. The second aspect of social intelligence is leveraging our mobile platform, which provides that two-way communication between you and your constituents. So we have a mobile member application that enables your constituents, whether it's citizens or employees, to reach out to you with specific information. So not only can you send them messages, but they can send you messages back saying, hey, I'm okay, but I'm close to the fire, here's what it looks like, etc. Or, hey, I'm not okay and I need help. And you can, ensure that they get help. Notice that, the mobile member is also geography-based. So you see the green pins on the map represent where all of the, mobile constituents are, your employees, etc. Whereas the blue pins on the map represent, the broad social media presence and where those are coming from. So this gives you, this maximal access to situational intelligence, so you can, formulate your communications, more carefully. In addition to providing that mobile member that we talked about, we also have a mobile manager that also includes, not only those templates that we talked about, but also that same map interaction, so you can actually select an area of impact and right from your mobile phone, send a GIS-based notification. So it's very, very flexible. So the second half of the puzzle that we talked about was assuring that the people who you're communicating with are actually receiving your message. And Daniel mentioned this as one of the key benefits of Everbridge, and that is this whole notion of targeting the individual. So we all like to receive messages different ways. Some of us are more text-oriented, we're more email-oriented, we like the phone. Whoever you are, Everbridge, will find you. And the way that this works is that we will target individuals, and we will keep sending notifications to them until they respond. So you'll see in this example on the PowerPoint slide where you have a series of people who need to get an emergency notification, Alan, Sue, Dave, Phil, and Janice. And we do a first attempt, and we reach out to all of them. And once we confirm, 2 people have confirmed, 3 people have not, we continue with the second attempt, and we keep trying to reach out to people until the broadcast has ended. Now, what you can do, let's imagine at the end of this broadcast you didn't get a response from Sue or Janice. You can automatically turn around and send a rebroadcast to just those who did not respond. And that's all automated in the system. So it's this maniacal focus on getting a hold of the right individual with the right information. We talk a lot about situational intelligence and the two-way mobile communication. This slide just gives you some screenshots of exactly what that looks like. So the first thing is that with our mobile member application, you actually can receive push notifications, which you'll notice on the left-hand side where it says, you have a new message from ABC organization, there's a fire in downtown Glendale. And then from that, you can actually do, polling messages as well. So you can ask through the mobile member, are you safe and outside of the area? I'm not able to leave the area, I'm hurt, etc. And then likewise, once that person responds, they can also send you information back so that you get a better sense of what's happening on the ground, instant by instant. And you're not relying on rumors or guesses because you can see it for yourself. course, one of the key elements is, all of these capabilities are built on a trusted platform. Everbridge has been in business for, well over 10 years. We've built 10 years of best practices around emergency notifications. Our platform, has built-in redundancy across all of our systems. We have a scalable infrastructure. One of the things Daniel mentioned was all the messages they sent out, notifications they sent out during Hurricane Sandy. Well, that was a small number. It was a big number to him, but to us it was a small number because during the course of that event we sent over 10 million messages without a hitch because of the elasticity and the redundancy that we have across our platform. And of course our platform is very open and we can integrate with many other systems, etc. So just to give you a sense of the products that provide these capabilities, we have the mass notification product, which enables you to send and manage notifications from a geography perspective, or across enterprises. We provide Matrix, which enables you to manage incidents. So that's more for operational incidents that you want to track with customized fields and rules, etc. We also provide interactive visibility, which we saw a lot of screenshots of that, which enables you to maximize your situational intelligence with social media, weather, and then finally our mobile solution, which is also critical in that it provides that two-way communication, between mobile members and managers, whether those managers are leveraging a mobile phone or whether they are leveraging the portal itself. So always that two-way communication is of utmost importance. And then all these products rest on a platform that provides a unified data management structure. So when Daniel talked about his next step around integrating with their payroll system and HR system, we enable you to pull all kinds of data in, manage that contact database across all of these products. So you don't have to worry about, making sure that your contact database is, up to speed, you've got the right names, numbers, etc. We also provide free of charge Everbridge University, which gives you access to hundreds of classes and online courses, basically, to help you not only leverage our product, but really leverage it in a way that represents the best practices that we've, evolved over 10 years of experience in emergency mass notification. And I can, talk the rest of the day on all the things that we do, which, I know you're all dying to have that happen, but probably not. The best thing, though, is to really look to our customers, who are, in my mind, the best testimony of the value that we provide, just like Daniel represented with AlliedBarton. They speak more for our product than we ever could. We have over 1,500 customers, across multiple verticals. And we invite you, if you're in any of these verticals, to reach out to us, and we can really give you an understanding of how these various companies and institutions are leveraging Everbridge. So with that brief overview, I want to just thank everyone for attending the webinar today. We really appreciate it. And we are here, both Daniel and I, to answer any questions that you may have regarding the material that was presented.
Great. Thank you so much, Claudia and Daniel. At this point, we're going to open it up to questions from our audience. As a reminder, you may submit your questions by typing a question into the open text field in the questions panel on your screen and submitting to all panelists. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. So our first question comes from David. He asks, does Everbridge allow two-way communications between the system and federal agencies?
The answer to that question is yes, and there's a number of ways in which we provide that, and we do leverage standards like IPAWS and CMAS, and we'd be happy to talk to you about those things in more detail.
Great. So our second question comes from Nancy. I think, Daniel, this is a question more directed at you. Can you talk about best practices around the timeline of notifying staff that they may be needed? For example, you mentioned that you communicated with volunteers 7 times before Sandy. What's the best frequency for communication?
Well, we found that the first notification should really be just getting information into the hands of our volunteers that we are tracking a possible event and really just putting them on alert that something's occurring that they may not otherwise know about. We've also set up some timelines about when we should notify during the time of day, actually, as far as our volunteers go. We've set up some timelines around you know, how early in the morning should we be sending notifications, how late at night should we be sending notifications, obviously keeping in mind that that people are at home with their families and probably don't want to get a message at midnight or whatnot. So we've done that as well based on our experience. Hopefully that answers your question.
Great, thank you so much. So Brian asks, are there limitations to your communication in terms of geography and reach? For example, overseas, like communicating with oil platforms in the middle of the ocean. And Debbie asks a similar question with a probably more appealing locale. She asks, can the system be used in the Caribbean? And how do you handle integration with local?
Happy to go to the Caribbean and help implement Everbridge. So just please make note of that. No, seriously. Everbridge is a global company, so we have support for locations around the world. There is really no limitation from that perspective. We, can call, any country. We can SMS pretty much any country. No limitations.
Great, thank you. So along those lines, Graham asks, can you automatically integrate geographic bounds input like NOAA information?
So we have a number of vehicles to integrate geographic information. We do leverage polygons that you can upload to our system as long as they conform to shapefile format. We can really upload anything.
Great. So now Dominic asks, on the social image map that you showed, were the green pins for mobile members based on pre-identified addresses, or are their locations GIS linked?
So all the locations that you saw with the green and blue pins were all linked to their specific location using the location of their mobile device at the time that they sent that message if they were a mobile member, or where they tweeted if they were a Twitter social media person.
Great. And so I think our last question comes from Graham, and Daniel, this is probably more of a question for you, and I'll paraphrase. Can you talk more about your planned integration with the Payroll Connection and what that will entail?
Well, from a technical standpoint, that's not really my wheelhouse, unfortunately. Our goal is really just to be able to, from managing the situational response program, is to be able to automate some of the employee turnover or contact information that that we do maintain in our company system. Automate that in Everbridge so that it takes some of the administrative work out of managing our own program and database in Everbridge. So technically, unfortunately, sorry, I can't answer that question, but maybe somebody else can.
Yeah, I can add some color to that. So we provide a couple of different ways of integrating with HR systems. One is you can just simply upload an Excel file and bulk load those contacts. And then the second thing is we do have a contact API so that you can leverage our API to make changes as they occur you know, on the fly, etc. So those are two vehicles that you have to manage contacts.
We have a lot of questions coming in. We'll try and squeeze in a few more. So Antonio asks, how would communication still occur in the case of a power outage, similar to the one that we had a few years ago along the East Coast?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. One of the key best practices that we always recommend, and you'll notice that even in the presentation we didn't highlight it as effectively as we should have, but we always recommend that you provide multiple communication delivery paths for your constituents, so that, you know, in the event that the phone lines are down, you know, no one has access to their landlines, they can get an SMS message, or they can get a message on their mobile phone, etc., or email. So we recommend that you use multiple paths so that in the event of a power outage, you know, people still have, you know, access on their mobile devices or computers, etc.
Fantastic. Great. So Colin asks, do you operate on all platforms, for example, iOS, BlackBerry, Android, Windows 8?
Yeah, the answer to that is yes. I think one key thing that we didn't talk about is our system in general is a SaaS system. So the portal that the screenshots of the portal that you saw are all accessed via software as a service. And then from a mobile perspective, we have you know, Android, support for Android, iPhones, you know, Apple OS, and we also have a mobile web that will enable, you know, access, you know, virtually any device.
Great. So this question is also from Graham. How are you securing personal information contained in your logs, such as telephone numbers logged when making calls?
Yeah, we do have some privacy settings that you can leverage, and obviously, you know, all that data is you know, kept confidential from anyone else. We have secure systems. We provide, you know, if it's highly you know, sensitive, we do provide encryption if needed.
Great. So I think we probably have time for one final question. This one is probably for both Claudia and Daniel. Can you talk more about being able to contact people when the situation is unfolding? So Daniel, I think for you it's more of a, you know, for an example with Hurricane Sandy, what types of communications did you send to people as the situation was unfolding? And then maybe Claudia, you could speak to the technical aspect of that.
Yeah, so from our experience, again, our first message is always that we're tracking. If we have advance notice that something could occur, we'll notify our volunteers that we're tracking a storm, or maybe it's a wildfire out in California, that we're tracking an event, and that there might be an opportunity, or there might be a client who requests coverage. The second thing we do is we, you know, our account management, or our managers who work directly with our clients, are in communication with them, finding out if they do need extra support at any of their facilities that we either cover or don't cover. So once we get information from any of our clients that they are looking for additional support, we'll send a message then as well, indicating that there has been a client, you know, you know about the event already. There has been a client that has asked for support, and then once we negotiate the details of that coverage and we determine that we will be providing service, we then send an additional message deploying them and giving them information as to who to contact and the length of deployment and where they're deploying to and that type of information.
Yeah, so I just want to go back and address one piece of the power outage question, which I really addressed the piece of, you know, how recipients would receive a message, but I want to complement that with how you would initiate a message in the event of a power outage. And there's a couple of things. One is we do have a mobile manager application that you can initiate from your mobile device, any broadcast. And we also have something that's called Live Operator. So if you really don't have access to a computer, but you do have access to a phone, you can actually call our helpline, our customer support helpline, and we will, in an emergency fashion, assist you and step through your particular settings and ensure that that broadcast gets out appropriately. So we do provide, some backup around those kinds of scenarios. The other piece I think that's important that we didn't talk about also is that in the event of an emergency, you may want to gather some key people and invite them to a conference call. And we also provide the ability to send out a notification that just automatically calls people and connects them to a conference line. And then you can really talk live with your key team and ensure that everyone's on the same page, et cetera, and problem solve together.
Great, thank you so much. So at this point, I'm sorry to announce that we've run out of time for the Q&A session. So thank you, Daniel and Claudia, for a great session, and to all of our attendees who were able to join us today. If you missed any part of the webinar, be sure to look for the slides on blog.everbridge.com, and you'll receive an email with a link to the recording in the coming days. If you haven't already, please take a moment to follow us on Twitter at Everbridge, join our group on LinkedIn, Everbridge Incident Management and Emergency Notification Professionals. And for those of you interested in seeing a demo of the new Everbridge system, please visit everbridge.com/contact-us or contact-us to request a demo. So thank you all again for your participation in today's presentation on the Managing Staffing for Critical Events, how AlliedBarton keeps clients safe. I hope to see you again at a future event. Thank you so much.